Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there was a handsome, brave prince in search of his lady fair, who was captured by an evil dragon and stored away in a tower. Quietly she waited day and night for her prince. Does this sound familiar? It may seem innocent, but in reality there are gender stereotypes underlying this fairy tale, even in that first sentence. Gender bias, even now, is not a thing of the past. It is still very prevalent in culture, in education, and even young children's first books. While many stories seem innocent enough for children to read, you must critically analyze what the underlying message the books you read to kids may be conveying. We often do not pick up on these gender biases because we are so cultured to think that it is just the way things are. But for a young child who is learning everything from scratch and picking up on cultural cues we do not even notice, this passage could be very damaging to what we want our children to believe. The message these books are sending children is that boys must be violent and they are to be the savior of the girl. And to the girls it tells them that life is not complete without a man to rescue you. It also implies that girls are to be quiet and passive in order to attain a man that is worth waiting for. This, however, even spills over into education. Studies show that girls give the teacher exactly what they ask for, but are rarely willing to take risks in their writing. These biases may be implying limits to the girls that they can be smart, but ultimately their timid behavior and good looks are going to make them more successful in life by finding a husband, getting married, and having children, and thus completing their life. The problem with this picture is that all their plans revolve around a hero to rescue them and sweep them off their feet. Any potential of higher education a girl might strive for is slowed by society's perception of what a girl is to be. The very first exposure they get of this mindset is in a traditional fairy tale book. While girls are limited in their expectations, there is still some concern for the boys' development of literacy. The classic story tells us that boys are not passive who sit around all day, but they are playful and aggressive. How does this affect their learning? Boys are affected because they are expected to be violent and be a savior. So therefore, this type of literature they are attracted to. The only problem with this is that there is no place in the school system for violence. Even if boys read or write violent books, it does not necessarily mean they are violent. This is just a type of literature they are cultured to like. The violence is looked down upon in schools because the general thought is that it encourages violence. However, maybe this is a way for boys to express the instinct they have to fight without being violent. The end result is that they are then forced to write about other things that they are not interested in and lose their passion for reading and writing. This would explain the decline in boys' interest in literacy. We cannot eliminate the problem of gender bias in books, but we can teach children to be aware of gender bias. We must allow children to analyze the books based on gender stereotypes that they are given. One way of doing this is to ask what they believe the role of each character was and why the author made this certain character play this role. Another way of challenging the accepted gender bias of books is to bring in some books that challenge the role of genders. Some examples are Princess Smarty Pants, The Tough Princess, Princess Cinders, Piggy Book, and The Paper Bag Princess. These books change the stereotypes that usually come in fairy tale books and allow the children to see that girls are allowed to speak their minds and boys do not always have to be a hero. Also, children should not be classified on progress based on gender, but rather based on achievement. There are some boys who are great writers and some girls who do not enjoy reading. The last thing we must do is make education of gender bias an ongoing process. We cannot expect them to hear a lecture once and take it to heart. We have to continue to remind them that just because books and culture say one thing does not mean that you must abide by the limitations they put on you.